You're pretty practiced at it.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, you can, or I
I'd
can.
like to call the meeting to order. Staff, can we have a roll call, please?
Commissioner Tubb. Commissioner Johnson second.
Here.
Commissioner Tim.
Here.
Commissioner Cole.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Davis as an executive. Commissioner Bailey.
Here.
Commissioner Green.
Here.
Commissioner Dean. And Commissioner Robledo.
You want to see them up there? Okay, next on today's agenda is approval of the August 19, 2024 meeting minutes on page 2-3 of your packet. Do you have a motion?
I motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. Thank you. Next on today's agenda is scheduled business, staff, agency consultants, consultations, and 2023 CDBG Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation, pages 4-30 for your packet.
So today I invited some of the folks that kind of work in housing and affordable housing in Albany to discuss those needs for low and moderate income residents. So I will start with Mr. G. If you'd like to kind of share what the needs that you see are. I think I sent you a list of questions. So answer any of and all of those that you'd like to about what the needs are in our community.
Can you state your full name for the minute?
Name is Gamal, G-A-M-A-E-L, Nassar, N-A-S-S-A-R. Folks call me Mr. G. I'm the Executive Director of the Albany Area Habitat for Humanity. And this is?
I'm Jerry O'Riordan. I'm the construction manager for Habitat.
And Jerry's been around for quite a bit, and I'm fairly new to the organization, but not new to Habitat and community needs and so forth and so on. So I got these questions, which was fantastic. Thank you. Gave me a platform where to start from. And I was looking at them and I answered them from a point of view as if Habitat for Humanity. From the point of view of an individual who understands community needs and has access to individuals who you hear things. So I don't know how much time I have.
30 seconds.
Probably like 10 minutes.
Okay. I'll just be this first one. I kind of wrote it out and then we can go from there on the other questions. To address the kind of housing that's most needed for low and moderate income Albany residents, affordable rental housing, rising cost of living. Rental housing is low and moderate income residents that may not be in a position to purchase a home. Albany could benefit from those more affordable rental units. And I say that because Habitat, that's not our business model, but what the community needs. Homeownership programs that provide affordable homeownership opportunities that can help break the cycle of rent dependency. Many residents, including younger families, will benefit from first-time home buyer programs, shared equity homes, and other models that make homeownership more accessible for moderate income individuals. Supportive housing for residents with experiencing chronic homelessness or have special needs. Supportive housing that includes wraparound services is critical. This type of housing can provide stability for vulnerable populations and prevent cycles of homelessness. Now, I know that our community is working on all of those, but that's the way I answer these questions. Disability accessible housing. Given the aging population and the needs of residents with disabilities, housing units that are fully accessible are necessary. New development should consider universal design principles to make homes more adaptable for residents with varying mobility needs. Subsidized and traditional housing. As Albany continues to grow, subsidized housing, whether through vouchers or income-based rental units, may be a key component of ensuring affordability. Transitional housing is also vital to help residents bridge emergency shelter and permanent housing. And then energy efficient housing. Albany could benefit from energy efficient homes that lower utility costs for residents, especially low income families who may be disproportionately affected by rising energy costs. So in summary, the most needed housing in Albany likely includes a mix of affordable rental units, pathways to home ownership, and specialized housing for vulnerable groups such as seniors, people with disabilities, and those facing homelessness. By addressing a variety of housing needs, the city can better support its diverse population and promote long-term community stability. That's the first. Questions or thoughts or comments? Yes, ma'am.
So from a habitat perspective, I mean, your waiting list or number of applicants, we're also trying to find out what your agency's needs are
Okay.
as well.
Our agency needs, in going through the questions, I again tried to balance what our needs are. I mean, we want to be one of the go-to agencies for the city of Albany as it relates to affordable housing and building home ownership. So we understand some of the barriers to home ownership, and given the needs of the community, what we've been talking about, we want to move towards permanent affordability. We want to move towards middle housing, smaller homes, more cluster type homes. We want to be able to build more opportunities for home ownership, yet still keeping our homes in the affordable market. We're talking about permanent affordability, for example. So we have 8 lots in the next couple of years that we can build on. We'd like to look at changing our format from a larger single family home. When I say larger, 3-2, right? But something smaller and more accessible to our aging population, to our veteran population, to possibly to our younger population. We have to look at how our homeowners qualify for their homes. And we just had a strategic planning meeting, and our board understands the fact that we may have to focus on a particular demographic within the folks that qualify globally for Habitat, and say, let's look at over 55, for example, or over 65. Those that can go into a smaller type of environment, a 1-1 or a 2-1. I like to call it 1.5-1 because we're looking at possibly being able to house seniors and have a place where a caregiver can overnight, right? A 1.5 with 1 bathroom or 1.5 bathroom. And that's why Jerry's here, because we've been talking about this for quite some time, and we understand our community needs, or at least we think we understand our community needs. And with the help of Habitat International, which is also thinking about this on a global level, but we have to understand what our needs are as an affiliate here in this community. And we think and we believe that that's the path to our future, being able to provide more home ownership as well as still meet the mission and the vision of Habitat for Humanity and those that qualify for our low income homes.
Yeah. As being one of those over 55, just barely, of course, just wondered, are your lots that you have, would they be possible to have a small home plus an ADU? Like say if I needed to go into a smaller home, but I needed some help, and maybe one of my kids or something could live, in the smaller home, or vice versa. I just wondered, are any of your lots fit that?
I'll answer, maybe you can answer as well. The available lots that we have right now, do not believe they're of that type.
Well, you can build an accessory dwelling unit on any lot as long as, so there is no restriction on that.
Right, we understand.
But I thought you were
But
asking.
there might be a Habitat affiliate or a Habitat International restriction on whether you can do more than one unit, or whether both units have to be affordable. So
These are the lots that we have.
It's a possibility. With the new rules and regulations, city's talking about different setbacks. We have more freedom to do that.
Okay.
It's just a matter of taking your engineer, penciling out what the square foot of each lot is, and take a look. And then also with that, if you take a look at the cost, rising costs now, we're fighting to be able to build one house, and now we're gonna build an ADU right next to it. And we're gonna put one person or one family in there.
Yeah.
So you look at quantity of housing. If you were putting a family in someone in an ADU, take care of them, somehow that was going to take care of them better, that could work.
Okay.
My question I would have is, we would have to take a hard look at our lots
Sure.
and look at who's moving in there. And currently our demographic and our target and international's target has been families first, husband, wife, children. Secondly, single mom, children. And that's been the focus all along. And suddenly now they're talking about changing. So we have to also change our focus, and we've already got these lots that we had penciled in for single family homes.
Okay.
So we got to take a look at
All
that.
right, thank you.
We're looking at the cluster home environment, especially as it relates to middle housing. So we're balancing what we had planned with with possible future organizations, and looking at the funding that's available for us as well, and what the needs of the community are, what the needs of possible funders are as well, or what the requirements are. There's a lot of funding out there. It just depends on where you get your funding from, what you've told your funder you're going to build, and what we have available. We'd also like to look at future lots as well, but we're not at that point yet, given the funding that we have available to us.
And a question, just ballpark, in terms of when you build, I guess let's look at the way it's been for the single mom, not the new stuff because you haven't built that yet, but what's kind of the rough breakdown about how the costs get covered? How much does the inhabitant end up having to pay? How much do you have to get from other sources and so forth?
Give you an estimate of where we are right now, given the cost of what it takes to build the home. And that we have AMI limitations. Currently, the two homes that are finished and continuing to build on the street, Marion, thank you. Marion Street is at 30% AMI. So give you an example, we have a homeowner that's purchasing a home for $345,000. Their mortgage, many people don't realize that our folks still have a mortgage. Their mortgage is $100,000. So they'll roughly be paying about $900 and change per month, as opposed to what they were paying in a rental, which was about $1,700 or $1,800 per month. So that's where we are. Don't know what the future looks like, especially if we build smaller homes, but for a 3-2, a 3-2 with a small car garage, small lot, that's what we're looking at right now. That's what they're moving into right now.
And generally you're asking, I think, about funding. Where's our money coming from?
Yeah.
And in our institution, most of our money in the past that I've been there has been from fundraising. There's been limited grant writing in the past 13 years. I worked for Habitat, and that's changing. The new director we've got. So what we have to do is raise $300,000, sell a house for 90, and lose $200,000.
It's a losing process.
It's a huge losing proposition. So when I look at the bills coming every month as I build, I know there's very little coming back. And the other thing is when it comes back, the first check might be $900. So now on Monday, I get $900 and I've already spent $300 plus. So you can see how difficult it is.
What do you
to
see
supply
as the
housing.
price per square foot to build right now?
Oh, man.
Not counting the lot or anything, just ballpark.
We're estimating right now the home that we just built cost us about $190,000 to build. And we're building two. The cost per square feet is kind of been difficult because we're building them on the same lot. So some of the things, so after we're done with these, we'll be able to go back and say, this is what it actually cost us to build those two, which will change because price of lumber has changed, price of contractors, nothing's going down. And everything's going up. But what we can tell you is the homes that we've built are the closest thing to net zero you can find. The solar panels on the top of the roofs are immense. And Jerry's done a fabulous job with the walls and making it as impenetrable as possible for the outside air and so forth. So what we've done is combine a vision of a quality build, a program for our homeowners to focus on financial stability, future stability, and move into a home that they can call a home for their children for quite a long time through a model that tries to encompass everything that they need from a holistic point of view. That's tough because we're contractors. We build houses. We do have At the moment, I'll be honest, it's a very weak family support system, but working on increasing that and collaborating with other organizations and not recreating the wheel. If the family needs something, connecting them with those other organizations and are trying to get what they need from us. But we're contractors. We're contractors and builders of affordable homes. And everything we do is at a loss. Pretty much everything we do. And that's the way it was designed from the very beginning. Habitat for Humanity was never designed to make money. It was designed to build homes for folks in the community using volunteers. And, that has to evolve, but that's really what the mission still is. And so you understand right now, our model is not to hold the entire mortgage, but to sell it first so that we can generate some income to continue building. And then we hold a second. And over the course of the years, we forgive that second. So let's say there's a 30-year mortgage. At the end of 30 years, if everybody pays on time, they own that home outright. But as we move forward with permanent affordability, what we're trying to do is keep that home in the affordable market, which means even after 30 years, they own the home, but they don't own the land. So that home, let's say if they or their family members want to sell the home, they'll sell that home using our organization to another family that meets the exact criteria. They won't lose. They'll still get a piece of the equity. They still get generate income, but not that huge windfall that other families in the past have received because they've owned that home outright that they paid $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 for, but it's now worth $400,000. So our goal is, give an example, we've built about 43 homes in the last 30 something years. So those homes belong to those homeowners. If we were doing permanent affordable, those 43 homes would still be available to families in need in this community. So that's our future goal and future change.
That's good. Thank you.
In our business model, we've been told by International that by 2025, we need to be net zero. So 2 years ago, we started, I figured you never get anything right the first time. And you got to practice early. So the first 2 houses we built net zero, both have complied completely with the rules and regs. So the family moves in, should, if they're moderate with their energy use, they should have electric bill, house is all electric, solar panels will wipe it out, makes it more affordable now when they're older. The other thing is there's a metal roof on a house. What we found in the last 5 years is my families come back to me and say, house is paid for, we've been there 25, 28 years, we're both in our 60s, a lot of them disabled, or unable to afford a roof. And they come back to us and say, we have no other place to turn. And I'm back on that roof, put a roof on a house we built 25 years ago.
I think that's a great transition. I really appreciate what you guys have had to say. And I would welcome you, Mr. G, to send me those notes that you took so I can also share those in case there's stuff that you wanted to convey that we didn't have a chance to right now. I'm going to turn it over to Luis, who's going to talk about Dev Northwest and from kind of the home rehab standpoint and the needs that he sees. So Luis.
Yeah, I'm right here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. So I can speak a little bit from the home repair program, and then very similar as a developer. I want to echo a lot of what Habitat has said because we experience the same frustration. On the home repair side of things, one of the things that we're seeing is a lot of the homes that these families are in, with the income demographic that we serve, are in pretty rough shape. And so for us to be able to come in and do some of those repairs, we're not really upgrading, we're repairing, and just keeping these homes in healthy of a condition as we possibly can, by eliminating mold, updating the siding. I think I heard someone talk about a metal roof, seeing if that's a potential option. Oftentimes we have to kind of counter that based on what the cost is. So metal roof is a little bit more expensive. We have to make some tough decisions with the homeowner to be able to try to maximize their funding and also repair as much as we possibly can. So that's kind of what we're seeing on the home repair side of things. There's also a lot of need for ADA accessibility, converting bathroom. We see a lot of that, and bathroom conversions are pretty expensive. So those are some of the challenges on the home ownership and affordability. Like how do we keep things affordable? We follow a variety of different models. We have done 2 developments in the past. I heard Habitat talk about where the land is not owned. So we follow that similar model of a community land trust. Whenever we can acquire land at a cheap rate, very inexpensive, we then go in and build units. We've done cottage clusters, and then we're doing subdivisions as well. The biggest barrier we see with our clients is the price point and then what's available. And the price point at the state of Oregon is really high. And I will say that in the city of Albany, there's not a whole lot out there for the families that we meet. And the families that I'm usually talking about are the 80% of the area median income. And even I would extend that because a lot of our program is now a higher amount of 100% area median income. And those families are working class families who just don't have the ability to get in. The barriers that we see are those 2 plus the ability to have down payment available. So we work a lot with the down payment assistance program through the city, through the counties, and then through the state. And oftentimes some of these families that we're helping get into our development are using multiple funding sources just to keep it affordable. And if I were to share some of the prices on some of the homes that we recently sold with the down payment assistance, we would all be having a question of whether that is affordable or not. And the answer is it's not, right? And the reason it's not, it's because of the rates. And there's just some of those things that we have very little control over. The families that we're usually helping that we see with some of these challenges, BIPOC families of color, have historically been struggling. We work a lot with single parents, single mom, single dad, and then families who are on fixed income. And the families that are on fixed income are the ones that are the hardest to help because there's just no wiggle room around being able to increase their income. They're at a point in their life where it becomes a big challenge to be able to do that. And I think, sorry, I'm kind of skipping around here. So Beth, if you want me to, if there's specific questions, just call them out. The one thing that we as Dev Northwest would really benefit or like what resources could be available that we would pursue really is for us, it's going to be being able to have access to cheap land so that we can build and provide home ownership opportunities. Our community land trust model is very similar, that the land is leased to the homeowner, is protected under that trust. But it's a model that we follow that we're seeing that has worked now that we've got 2 and we've got like 4 or 5 developments across the state coming in with about 86, I think last I counted, it's about 86 new units in the next 2 years. It really allows for that model to be and to stay as a affordable home for future home owners. So as a family comes in and buys these units, whether it's a starter home, whether it's a long-term house for them, when they go to sell, we know that that home is going to be on the market and that it's going to be available for another family to be able to utilize. And I think that's a very similar mission that we share with Habitat, is that these homes that are being built, that they stay in the market and that they don't get swooped up by investors, or that they become available for families of that income demographic. And one of the biggest concerns that we get is, can I sell that home to another family that meets those demographics? And the need is definitely there. My list of interests right now for some of the homes that we are building in our developments is over 200 families that have applied between Clackamas, Salem, Corvallis, and in the Eugene area. And so there's definitely going to be families that are going to be looking for these homes. It's just a matter of making sure that it's the right fit for them. And then the big one is really funding, right? So like funding is one that's always scarce, whether it's funding for DPA, funding for home repair, funding for an organization like ours to be able to access to build. So that's a big one. We see that with the state. But any other gaps that we have to go in and apply for loans, and those are pretty costly. And so funding is a big piece. As we were talking about affordability, is can we make that with some of with restrictions that allow us to build and have the flexibility to deliver on some really good homes.
Question?
Yep.
Regarding the repair, the home repair processes, can you comment on the demographics of the people that typically need help? Is it older population or younger or?
Yeah, it's majority is older, fixed income.
Okay.
So one thing about the funds that Dev Northwest has received from the city, the CDBG funds, is that it's going into a revolving loan fund so that as those loans are paid back, they're building up money to then circulate back out into the community. But yeah, like Habitat, Dev Northwest does build homes also.
Yeah. So how does that work? I mean, I'm aware, I understand the Habitat process to some extent, but how does the Dev Northwest process help people acquire homes, right? Are they also losing money on them, or do you get grants that help pay for it, or how does that work?
Yeah, so we have a pro forma that we build out for each development, and if it makes sense, we pursue it. And so that pro forma will spell out what our cost is per home and per square footage. We've also done some huge adjustments internally. So we've brought in a general contractor. So that is something that we have in-house. I also have a realtor that is in-house. And all of these are with the intent that any additional revenue that we can make on the sale of the home, which is not a huge amount. Our prices are pretty locked in. But the intent is that we try to build a program that is as self-sustained as possible. So we've brought in a GC, we've got a realtor that I've managed. We've got all of these little pieces that previously were paying a pretty large amount, and now it's all in-house. The funding pieces are ones that we go after. So we do apply for funding through the state for those homes. But it's a small sliver of the pie.
Okay, so mainly it's through like vertical integration, a little bit of funding, and really not targeting a lot of profit. And then you're aiming your efforts at developing just basically low income or low cost housing. That's what you're doing, it sounds like.
Correct.
Okay.
It sounds like you have less volunteer help than Habitat. Is that true?
That's correct. Our model, it doesn't follow the Habitat, where we have volunteers. I have had funding in the past where it does have sweat equity, but it's very we don't have the resources that Habitat does to be able to build in that manner.
And that is becoming more and more complicated.
Yeah, I don't think Habitat has the same level of volunteers as when I was volunteering and in my church, and just, yeah, it's been a while. I was pregnant with Henry. But it's been a long time. Yeah. Would you say you're serving mostly the 60 to 80% bracket? So you've kind of got a spectrum of need where Habitat is serving below 60%. Then Northwest and its home buying is maybe serving 60 to now 100%. So, and they have different programs. They have the land trust model, which is that shared equity model. Same as Habitat is now starting, but they also have a down payment assistance program. So that program allows a buyer to go shop for housing if they can find it. The problem is we used to actually, the CDBG funds used to go towards that program, but when housing costs spiked so much, we just couldn't provide enough down payment assistance to bring those costs down enough to get people in homes. So really, the Northwest has really branched out, at least since we've been partnering with them in building the affordable housing and, just trying to reach that market where maybe down payment assistance it's just been a little bit harder.
We actually have one available to us right now as well through Habitat International. So the two homes that are moving to home ownership right now, they are getting up to $30,000 worth of down payment assistance, and one of them may get even more as a first generation homeowner as well. So different criteria, but Habitat has tapped into federal funds. It's allowing us to help our homeowners a little bit more. And from my understanding, that's not going away anytime soon. So I anticipate having that for the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, just to share a couple very similar, a couple of figures that of partnerships that we've established with other jurisdictions. So there's a county that we are working with who's utilizing some of their CDBG fund for up to 125,000 in down payment assistance. Part of that is a little bit forgivable. The other is a silent second that does get paid back. City of Eugene, I'm working with them. They've allocated some funding where it's allowed me to go up to $50,000. The city of Springfield does something similar where it's 25,000. So the amounts don't have to be as crazy, but or as low as what we've thought in the past. I really think that in my experience that 25,000 to 30,000 is that sweet spot to be able to help families with that down payment assistance. I know when I first started doing it, it was like 7,000. Those days are long gone, unless we see some pretty dramatic changes within the market.
Thanks, we appreciate that. I think I'll turn it over now to Dina to share kind of your perspective coming from Community Services Consortium and the programs you have and the clients that you guys are serving and what their needs are. So please take it away.
Thank you. I'm Dina Eldridge. I'm the Senior Housing Operations Manager for Community Services Consortium. So obviously we're a little different than Dev Northwest or Habitat because we don't build housing. We're not focusing on home ownership, although we do have a program in weatherization that can help low-income homeowners as well as renters fix up their homes and make them more energy efficient. But mostly our niche is people who are renters or people who've unfortunately already experienced homelessness. So basically, I thought I'd make this really easy and just go ditto Mr. G and I'm done because he said everything. But I guess from my perspective, what I would offer is the biggest growing segment in the homeless population that we're seeing is fortunately seniors. So if they were lucky enough to be a homeowner and be able to support that and build wealth that way, now they're on very limited incomes and there's just no place that they can maintain rent. So we're seeing more and more people fall into homelessness in that demographic. And really another unmet need, as much progress as Albany has made in building new housing, which I applaud. The one thing I'm still not hearing about in particular as a housing type is permanent supportive housing. And now that's for people who have been homeless for a long time, and as a result, they have disabilities and different barriers that will require that they not only get an ongoing, most likely lifetime rent subsidy, but also support services, intensive case management, and that can vary, pretty significantly. But it goes beyond what a voucher program can do from the Housing Authority, for example, because those folks are able to get, some help with rent, but beyond that, there's nothing to help them with other issues that they may face, whether it's physical disability, mental health barriers. I mean, we've been hearing from people with lived experience, and they're telling us, hey, just because we get back into a place to live, it doesn't mean we know how to pay our bills or how to go to the grocery store and budget or pay our share of rent, even if our share of rent is only $10. So it's a lot of real support that's ongoing. And as programmatically, an agency like CSC can get grants to do that, but they just come with the rental assistance and the support service. It doesn't come with the physical place for the person to live. So we're out there, as we are with our other programs, just looking amongst scattered site, regular market housing. So having more developments that are not only financed to be low, ongoing, affordable, but set up to accommodate that long-term assistance on site 24 hours if necessary, someone there, is really a niche that needs to be filled all over, but here in particular, because there's just nothing on the horizon that I've heard of. So,
What does that look like to you? I mean, is that like a cluster of homes with, one in the middle for the support, or like separate rooms,
it
or?
could be many different models. I think, we've had a discussion lately about what is permanent supportive housing, and everyone has their own idea of what that is as well. I think people feel like they all know what it is, but then when you see it done, it can be done very differently. So we've seen just regular apartment buildings built. I think there's the project in South Corvallis that's going to be that model where it's an apartment building. They'll have on-site management and a place for, a resident services person to be. And I'm not sure what their service plan is gonna be. Is it gonna be just, hey, if you need support, we'll check in on you once in a while. You always know who we are if you need something. Or if it's more like, hey, the first few months you move in, we're gonna come see your unit daily and see if there's any issues that you need. Because I've read about developments in the metro area where it was a story about a young man who moved into a brand new permanent supportive housing building. He was fairly young. And his mother was very happy because she thought, okay, finally his needs will be met and he have a roof over his head. But when she first looked at the lease that he was given, she noticed that it was basically a very standard lease. And she expected permanent supportive housing to mean that someone would go in his unit every day. And that was not the model that they had in mind. It was lesser. It was something more along the lines of, we'll check in with you maybe once a week and that kind of thing, but not daily. That's almost, more along the lines of assisted living or a group home. So there's a range. Frankly, there's things that, to me, people can have needs that go beyond permanent supportive housing. They really do need care. It's like managed care.
Dina, have you ever worked with ARC over in Corvallis?
With who?
With ARC?
No.
Because I had a sister-in-law, she had Down syndrome. And she had her own apartment, but she had someone coming in, had a staff person assigned her. And so the staff would work in the whole complex, they would go and I'm glad you mentioned that because you're right. Just because you put them somewhere doesn't mean that they might not even know how to do anything. Like you said, pay rent, balance the check. They just don't know. And so it's not just low income. It's not going to solve the problem.
Not always. In some cases, it will. Frankly, CSC's niche in the continuum that is housing and homelessness, we kind of specialize in prevention and helping families who, okay, something's happened, they've gotten behind, and so now they're over their heads and ever trying to catch up, but ongoing, they have employment or they have a plan, they have a way to sustain, but they're at risk right now unless they get that debt paid off or maybe a couple of months forward to get them stable in a new job or something like that. So that's kind of where we're always trying to work, but obviously there's more need on the extreme ends of that. And we have programs that we call rapid rehousing programs that take people from homelessness, that we help them find a new place to live. We give them case management, but it's not the level where we're in their house every day. It's let's work on your goals. Let's work on the things you said you do in the next 12 months or so that you would be able to be sustainable at the end of our assistance for you. So that's another level, but the extreme level, real permanent supportive housing, we had one HUD grant that did that. And it was just enough to help 5 individuals. And we basically sub that project out with Food Balanced Housing First. And the reason we worked with them is we had prior relationship with this kind of model. They had the housing, they had units, they had Van Buren House and places like that. And they had really, intensely trained case managers that are at a level that beyond our case managers. That's another thing. You can call someone a case manager and that means wildly different things.
Yes, it does. You sure does.
Sure does.
Especially, when you're including mental health and things like that.
Addiction services.
Yeah, it's varies wildly. So, but that's really what's missing. And, we did a kind of a look back on the last 6 years of point in time count homeless data. And it just jumped out at me that despite all the other changes we may see, the biggest demographic that we count every year is in that 45 to 60 some year range. It seems like middle age and later where you're getting older, but you're too young for a retirement or any kind of pension. People have issues with maybe they did a job they can no longer do because of a disability. They get laid off. There's ageism and, age discrimination. They're less employable and they don't have a safety net, especially if they're in a family without children. There's more safety nets for families with kids, but for individuals or couples without minor children, there's a lot less. And that's when the incidence of homelessness starts to really rise.
Second, interesting.
Well, thank you. Appreciate those
Yeah.
insights. Great. Are there any questions for Dina before we move on to the caper?
Another question to comment. Our care program has found out that finite focus is elderly women, widowed, and a trailer in one of the trailer parks around here. And all our repair happens in the trailer parks. And they tell me they have a $600 income, $650 to stay there. Where do they get their food? Food shop. Where churches. They have no income at all after they pay their rent. That's the group. When I look at programs that are out there, foster homes, some of these trailers are falling apart. I can't fix them.
Yeah.
I've had to go in there and say, it's caving in. I've had sticks holding up roofs, things like that. I mean, this is a disaster to live in. But our focus has found out that group itself is very large.
Yes, and it's growing.
Well, in my business, I work with seniors and I found a lot of them, their kids, they're estranged from their children, or the children don't know because they're too prideful to tell them I need your help.
Exactly.
And so part of what I do is I get the children on the phone and I said, you and me need to talk about mom and dad. And so it's a hard conversation to have. These are your parents.
Yeah.
I can help with the Medicare stuff. I can help with those getting their medication cheaper, but they need help at home. So my policy is anybody over age of 80 years old, they don't come to me, I go to them in their residences so I can see how they live. Because I have the emergency contacts, I can call them and say, Dad needs your help. You need to come and see Dad. His house is falling down. He's not washing his dishes, stuff like that. So yeah, it's yeah.
Okay. One of the things I have found since I've been here in this area is the definition of case management. I work with an organization called Crossroads Communities, and they are permanent supportive housing apartment complex providing wraparound services. For the longest time, what the heck is wraparound services? You're doing case management. No, we're doing wraparound services. The reason for that is just definition and understanding. But in my experience, one of the key factors of case management is not necessarily providing the direct service. We not necessarily have to recreate the wheel, but in case management, looking at the family, looking at the individual, realizing what their needs are, and then connecting them with the organizations that provide that are funded for that are expertise in those areas, but not recreating the wheel. You don't have to do that. But if there isn't that case management tool, that individual that knows the family, has the case notes, has access to the case notes, has access to contact information and all that, and then say, you know what, you need better prescriptions or you need something like that, let's connect you with an organization that does that. Let's connect you with, and start there. Because sometimes it's as simple as just making those phone calls, driving them over.
Yeah.
Calling, excellent opportunities is providing that central location where the organization can come in once a week and provide dental care, can come in once a week and provide mental services assistance or whatever they do, but providing them a location because oftentimes they can't get there, right? So there's different ways of doing that, but to me, case management is an understanding of a connection between that family and the individual and the resources that are out in the community, because there are some. When there aren't, then we got to look at creating it. But until you connect them, then they're dying and they're suffering and they're hurting, and yet there's an organization right down the street that can help them.
Well, that's the thing I was thinking about is that not everyone knows where to go.
No.
And then that's one of the reasons I started when I got elected, having nonprofits come, special presentation, and kind of tell what they do.
We don't know because we needed it. I'm thinking if I need something, where do we go?
Yeah, sometimes, I know when I did direct service, I started out in the most gratifying thing to me was people who had never come in for services at all. They managed to live their whole life without ever needing it, but something happens. They don't even know what they are, but luckily they found us. And, sometimes it was, I remember I used to do energy assistance as well, utilities.
Oh.
And I remember having a conversation with a woman who, she needed the assistance, but her family had convinced her that that was welfare and she should be ashamed of herself for going out for that. And she just never would follow through.
I see it all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Why are you doing that? We have enough money, but you're not helping me.
well then do it. Dang it.
Does CSD have housing navigators or helping wraparound services? I know that being on the Albany Partnership Board for a long time, and maybe they'll come to your presentation. They do have the resident services that provide that connection and what you might say is case management. It's really wraparound services to help people, like whether they're hoarders or whatever the issue is, that they're there. But sometimes agencies have a housing navigator, which maybe helps them get into housing or connect to services. Chance does that with, people that walk in and need help, but 211 is another resource to call to figure out, they can help you connect with the different agencies that you need, but I wasn't sure. I think it's so much.
The outliers misnamed our navigators, everybody else.
Yeah.
That's another definition everybody's debating. We have navigators, but those are really our first line of contact folks.
Okay.
They're basically screeners. But what we do have also is housing placement advocates. I'm actually down to one. And that person is certified to teach the Rent Well class, which is a class series for people who want to learn how to be a good tenant. And if they graduate, they get a certificate, and they can even be eligible for what they call the landlord guarantee program, which is sort of an insurance program for landlords that are willing to rent to them. But unfortunately, I would probably need to employ like 10 or 20 of those people, because the other thing they do is when someone's approved for one of our longer term programs and they're homeless, they work intensively to find them that place to live. We used to, just have the case manager help the tenant find a place to live, and that was doable 20 years ago, but it's not anymore. Because they have to be, it's become almost like the lottery, especially since COVID. You have to be sitting there trolling all the, property management sites for vacancies, credit card in hand, ready to hit send to apply, and then hope that they win it. So it's a full-time job, and unfortunately, if we get calls all day about, I just need help finding a new place.
Yeah.
We don't have the capacity to help everybody who's here.
Well, it's interesting, Jerry, that you mentioned the manufactured home situation because all of our parks are pretty old. And so I know that there have been, I see building permits for replacements, but the rents are so high in most of those parks. And if, you know, people can't afford to get a replacement home.
I
And
paid twice.
yeah, I mean, we need to think more strategically, I think, about what do we do with a situation where you just got aging manufactured home stock in these parks that, you know, most people have fixed incomes, and a lot of them are seniors and people on fixed incomes, yeah. Well, we're running out of time, but,
I appreciate all
it's
the
been great.
discussion, questions, answers.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was super helpful. I included the caper, the mouthful that Mayor Johnson mentioned earlier, the consolidated annual performance evaluation report. If there were any questions or comments on that, I'm happy to hear those. But it's really just kind of an overview of what did we do last year? How did our funds help folks? And even beyond what, I mean, we have out there, how do other agencies kind of support the needs in our community too, because it's that we don't necessarily even get to have the money to support, but there's so many things out there doing the work, like.
There is a public hearing next Wednesday on the paper. We are required to hold 2 public hearings a year on CDBG programs, and one of them is the action plan, and the other is this, but it's an opportunity for agencies to come just talk about the needs within the community. Anyone can come in and speak about needs that CDBG funds can maybe help address. And if you've been a recipient, you know, how impactful those funds have been or needing more funds. The same evening, next Wednesday, I'm applying for a federal, it's called Pro Housing is the acronym. It's removing obstacles to affordable housing production. We applied for a grant, didn't get it. It was way over prescribed. So I'm applying again for money to put into a pot that we call the Affordable Housing Fund until we can generate a revenue source to have our own pot of money to give out to incentivize housing production. I'm hoping we'll get it. I mean, it's just, there were 150 applications and only 21 were funded in the first round. So, you know, I'm hoping we can paint the case that we have a great demand for housing, but, you know, we'll be competing against others. So there's a hearing on that the same night. Just we're required to have a hearing. That grant is posted, and we did just have we've been doing housing implementation plan work. We had a survey, I think it's just been closed, but we are working through a list of tools and strategies. We're also going to be adopting our climate friendly areas coming up. So there are a lot of things that we're doing, and this is a small but important piece because CDBG funds are really the only revenue source we have to do as much as we can in the community to address needs. So as we have these agency consultations, I think it's important to figure out like, what are the greatest needs in our community? Are there needs that we want to prioritize this year? And we'll continue to hear from agencies, and we can ask follow-up questions from the agencies that were here. But this is sort of the start of that process because we'll be issuing a request for applications in another month or so. So I'll stop rambling. Thank you all for.
One question for the gentleman from Habitat. What do you attribute the change in the volunteer environment over the years? I mean, you're not seeing the amount of volunteer hours available.
I can tell you, it's the same thing you and I are suffering.
Well, yeah, you think that's the main
I
thing?
have volunteers with us since we started.
Right.
And Chuck Dellenbach is 84. Well, I've got 4 guys on the crew that are 75, a couple of women in their 60s.
So
What's changed really is that we're not getting the influx of people. So what we're trying to do right now is to try and increase our female volunteer list. My daughter used to work for me in my business years ago, and she always said, women don't get a chance. We teach people to be carpenters. We just don't ask them to get online with the rest of us. And the women I have worked for you are good enough that you could go hire them. And what we're trying to do is get them to reach out into the female community, hoping that the next house we build, we're going to have a women's build to put the house up. And that demographic and I don't want to say this and hurt anybody's feelings. Single moms who are not working are dying to come learn this. And we get feedback from people saying, like, put the kids to school, I can't be there till 9:30. That's fine. I gotta leave by 2. That's fine. You know, there's a really powerful group out there. It's got a lot of strength and energy, and they're eager to learn. Most of the women come to me and they're shocked. I didn't think you'd really teach me something. I thought you'd have me take a broom and sweep up. I was like, oh my God, my family, if I did that to anyone in my family, I'd be dead. I said, so we give them tools, we teach them how to run the machinery, how to frame houses, how to build, how to work on a roof. And they go through the whole program. And our numbers of younger females are growing. I have 2 in their 20s now.
Nice.
Some in between where they're going to school or working.
Well, we have 3 types of volunteers. We have the momentary volunteer. They're there for a reason. They have some extra time. Maybe somebody mandated them to come, so they're going to come and be gone in a very short period of time. Then we have our group bills, you know, like
The company.
the company wants to bring 10, 15, 20. I got a call from Central Willamette. They had 100 volunteers for a particular day that they're doing volunteer day. And, you know, you have to be prepared for that. You have to set it up. You have to make sure the bill is at the right time. You got to make sure, you know, there's a lot that goes into this one day of basically picture opportunity. And then you have the third type that Jerry just mentioned. These are hardcore individuals that are retired. They build homes. They built, some of them have built 30 homes already on Jerry. So those are the ones that actually you can count on 2, 3, 4 days a week to help you build a house. If you don't have them there, you're hiring contractor. Like Northwest just mentioned, if you don't have them available, pretty much it's going to cost you a little bit more to build that house because you have to.
So rather than a regulation or red tape or bureaucracy issue, it's a demographic and availability issue.
Of labor. The thing is, you don't need a lot of people to build a house. If any of us watched the crew work, I worked at a crew, 4 guys, so we built a new house every 90 days.
My grandfather's contractors.
Right. So when you look at what we're doing, we've got volunteers, they're only there 2 days a week. So we're working at half the speed of the average contractor, we're at half the time.
But it's getting done.
It's getting done.
Yeah.
You know, and the other thing is, we used to stick to 1-story houses. You know, you look through the information, we look here, 1-story, 88 houses used to be that. And we got the push that land is expensive, go up. So on 16 Art Marion Street, I have 2 houses, 2-story. You can't ask an 84-year-old person to go up there. And the first house, everybody did. The second house, half my crew said, I'm down. And when I talked to Hillsborough, who does a lot of 2-story building, Mike tells me, he says, Jerry, we do the 8-foot wall, we sub everything else.
Yeah.
Now that takes a lot of money. Like Mike said to me, he went to his board years ago and said, yeah, we'll go up, but you better find the money. And he said it just about crushed them, the first building they did. And you've got to have the guy to do the floor, the walls, the roof, siding, windows, everything.
Painting.
Yeah, your costs just go out of sight.
Right.
So if we want to go up, find a lot of money. If you're going to go 1-story, it's not only easier, the demographics is more willing to be there. I have people come, they look up, and we're up there with harnesses on, strapped to the building on the 2nd story, and they're like, oh, now. So that's our thing. Demographics, I don't need a lot of them. If a company says I'll get 20 people, I'll say, give me 3 days, 6 each day, and I'll get a lot of use out of you. But if I bring 20 people there,
Look, stand up.
that's exactly it.
Yeah.
10 people having coffee, 5 looking for something to eat, and 3 of you are busy.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
And you guys aren't too old to come volunteer because
Opportunities are, I mean, so I worked on the women's build and we did, I mean, you do have to find things that people can do, painting, some mailings, different things, wall raising is a big day. I mean, church groups, that's how I first got started was the church group, you know, and so there are groups that maybe want to volunteer and you just have to figure out how to plug them in, and it isn't necessarily an easy job, but you know, try to figure that out. But yeah.
Social media is good enough.
We are rebuilding our capacity in terms of working with volunteers through the churches, through individual businesses.
Yeah.
I mean, we have businesses that are willing to come in and help us with,
That's great.
do something for a day. But again,
Yeah.
proper planning, proper preparation, et cetera, et cetera. So in our rebuilding of our capacity, because we've been back ever since Andrew, we're focusing on rebuilding our volunteer teams, rebuilding our relationships with organizations, with companies, with churches. We have a meet and greet next month at Cigareth on the 20th, just to give people an opportunity to come in and meet our contractors, meet the platypus, meet me, meet some of our board members. So you're going to see Habitat much more in the community, from small little fundraisers like, coffee days to our larger activities and events. And hopefully people understand that Habitat is here. We're not just a restore. We are an affiliate. We are building homes. We're providing home ownership in the community and rebuilding our lists.
You're doing home repairs also, Jerry? Okay, because I know that was part of the, like, you could, if you did a certain amount, you could count that.
Well, we've just recently partnered with Energy Trust, and we're rebuilding our programs like Energy Trust, which gives us much more resources for the homeowner to fix their floor, fix their plumbing, fix their speed. And so we've all done that.
So meeting adjourned, by the way.
Yeah.